The Dutch Prime Minister has been meeting with the country's king to discuss the formation of a caretaker administration after the collapse of his coalition government. Mark Rutte left the palace after talks with King Willem-Alexander. Mr. Rutte announced late on Friday that his entire cabinet had resigned after it failed to agree on stricter immigration policies. New elections are not expected to be held before mid-November.
Netherlands, not in good standing. The Dutch government has collapsed after just a year and a half in office after failing to reach a common position on asylum policy talks between the four parties. On Friday, bore no fruit, domestic media reported. By the way, guys, before I go deep into this article is from DW News in Europe. More in the description below. Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte's coalition government collapsed after just a year and a half in office Friday, July 7th, 2023, to be exact, in a row over measures to curb the flow of migrants. Rutte, from the Netherlands' longest-serving leader, presided over crisis talks between the four coalition partners, but failed to reach a deal. The resignation was broadly reported in the Netherlands for a couple of hours on Friday evening before Rutte confirmed his resignation in a statement. Quote, "This evening, we have unfortunately reached the conclusion that the differences are insurmountable. For this reason, I will shortly present my written resignation to the king in the name of the whole government." End of quote. Rutte told the press what caused this. Rutte, the leader of the center-right VVD party, the largest in the four-party coalition, had wanted to tighten curbs on reuniting families of asylum seekers following a scandal last year about overcrowded asylum centers. He called for the number of relatives of war refugees allowed into the Netherlands to be capped at 200 per month and had threatened to topple the government if the measures did not pass. Wow, this is crazy, guys. Let's get more directly from the news source and Prime Minister Rutte himself. Editors, roll clip, fair use.
In the understated style of much in Dutch politics, Mark Rutte drove himself to the royal palace in The Hague to update King Willem-Alexander on the collapse of his government, pausing to exchange a few words with reporters before carrying on to discuss a caretaker administration with the monarch. Rutte, in power since 2010, is the Netherlands' longest-serving prime minister, but this ruling coalition has lasted only a year and a half.
En ook mensen thuis die dit volgen.
It's no secret that the coalition partners have very different views on migration policy. And today, unfortunately, we have to conclude that those differences are irreconcilable. That's why I will immediately offer the resignation of the entire cabinet to the king in writing.
The Prime Minister wanted the number of relatives of war refugees allowed into the Netherlands to be capped at 200 per month, but his junior coalition partners refused.
It's a difficult moment. We've held intensive talks about all sorts of measures to stop the influx of asylum seekers. This has not been easy. We also have to make room for those who do have the right to a safe haven in the Netherlands.
The Netherlands is expecting around 70,000 asylum applicants this year, almost double last year's number. And that's increased pressure on the government from far-right parties like the PVV, led by Geert Wilders.
In recent years, European politics has taken a more conservative stance on migration than what it used to a decade ago. The most recent example can be the Netherlands, whose government collapsed over differences on an immigration bill. Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte resigned on Friday after his coalition partners refused to extend support to his immigration policy. The policy sought to restrict the flow of asylum seekers in the country. It proposed to limit the entrance of children of war refugees who are already in the Netherlands. It would also have made these families wait for at least 2 years before they can be united with their children. Rutte's decision to bring down the government instead of reaching a compromise with the coalition is indicative of how potent the issue has become.
Tot een coalitie moeten komen. Dat duurt nog wel even als ik het opdenk.
This is not only true for Netherlands, but for entire Europe as a whole. All the countries here are facing an immigration crisis, with migrants from poorer nations traveling on dingy boats, risking their lives in hope of a better standard of living. This in turn has led to a housing crisis on top of inflation, which already soared owing to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Apart from this, the right-wing parties have capitalized this issue by adding the angle of threat to national identity. The shift to a migration-based politics became noticeable after the Syrian refugee crisis in 2015. Since then, several European nations like Italy, Germany and France have seen the rise of far-right political parties. For example, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, she had made the issue of migration a key tenet of her campaign and has pushed for tougher EU action to fight illegal migration after coming to power. Another example can be of Marine Le Pen of France, who came dangerously close to defeating President Emmanuel Macron last year. She too had taken a strong anti-immigration stance and promised to drastically limit immigration. This change in the European politics has been influencing the political scenarios around the world. Just on the day of collapse of Dutch government, former US President Donald Trump, he also brought the issue of immigration to augment his presidential campaign. He linked it with the recent riots in France. Trump said that the unrest clearly shows the need to have a tough migration policy, as going soft could lead to a similar situation in the United States of America. Take a listen.
When I return to office, the travel ban is coming back even bigger than before and much stronger than before. We don't want people blowing up our shopping centers. We don't want people blowing up our cities, and we don't want people stealing our farms. So it's not going to happen. The United States will not be condemned to the same fate as is happening in France. And I told Macron this was going to happen when I first met him.
Hey guys, it's Jose, your regular Joe Blow again, keeping an eye out and my ears open. And today another country is in shambles due to government mishandling. Man, last year at this same time, the problem was with the farmers in the Netherlands. That situation continues to get worse. And now this, let's pray for them and wish them the best and hope for the change. But not think for a second that we are not clear of a situation like this in the West, especially with an insane administration like the current one. Guys, do your research, and thank you for letting me bring you this information, and I'll continue to look into this, just like I know you guys would too. Thank you for affording me, guys, the opportunity to do my best to bring you my best. Stay free.
It ain't hard to tell, I excel, then prevail.